Hey, what's up guys, Mashine here, come back with a brand new video for you guys with all these major potential updates on the horizon, including the guaranteed, hopefully, end of Antwerp and possibly an Operation or Source 2 or something along those lines. I figured today would be a great time to talk about potentially selling your CSGO skins, and if it's the right time, let's hop on into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, and it's probably the biggest for the majority of people, is selling off Antwerp. And while I'm not specifically going to tell you you should or you shouldn't, I think I'm going to give you a couple resources that are going to help you out. First up, if you haven't watched my 10K special, I went over the ROI of Antwerp there, including the autograph capsules. And one thing that we found is that the autograph capsules are still being unboxed a lot, especially the one that contains the Rocks Hollow, because it is down 32% roughly in the span of a month and a half, considering since it first roughly released, putting it around a similar ROI level to the rest of the capsules. Now, whether you believe that's a good thing or a bad thing is really up for interpretation. I do still think that there is some positive to be seen there, that people are still opening it up so much that it's falling down to a similar level of the other capsules, and at the same time I could definitely see the argument of why it's not a good thing because it's just falling down to a similar level of all the other capsules. It's really up for interpretation. Now, talking about Antwerp, the one thing I think for sure is going to hurt it is if we do see an operation in a very short time period after the end of Antwerp. It's the one thing that I talked about in my video where I talked about the market could potentially be destroyed by an operation, because I do think that this situation could turn very similar to RMR if we do see an operation very closely after the end of Antwerp, because this is the most liquid item in CSGO. The Legends capsule is the most listed on the market by a significant margin, and therefore there's tons of these out there and people will not hesitate to sell at a loss. We've seen that with RMR, and therefore the situation could turn ugly very quickly if people really want to get their money. With that being said, I don't think that the current situation is close enough to an RMR situation that I would tell you that you should just get out and sell, because there is a lot of potential with these stickers. If we look at the stickers themselves, they are significantly better than what we saw with RMR, and they have some true value and true potential to them. And the last thing I want to mention on the Antwerp frontier is don't be convinced by any one person that you should sell or that you shouldn't sell your Antwerp items. They're not taking the loss or the profit, you are, so make sure you're making your own decision and not relying on someone else telling you to buy or sell it. After that, we can give a little bit more of a definitive answer when we move on to some more specific items. First up, cases. I do think that cases right now are sitting in a very good situation, and it does depend on what we see in the next upcoming weeks, because we do know that there is probably going to be a big update on the 21st, but we don't know if that's just going to be concluded with a sticker capsule or if there's something a bit more major behind it. Now, in my opinion, it does come down to one major thing if you're looking to sell your cases or not, and that's if you believe there's going to be an operation coming along with this update. An operation is something that would completely tank case prices and most likely every single thing you have. As long as it's somewhat liquid, it's probably going down in price unless it's extremely expensive. Now, since the end of Riptide, we've seen things change significantly, especially with case prices. We've seen the breakout case, one of the biggest staples in CSGO, up 60%, and we've seen cases that aren't as big of a staple but are still there, like the Spectrum 2 case, up 100%. Now, it's also going to be very hard to determine if you should actually be selling, because we've seen so many cases go up pretty significantly in price recently that it might not drop down a ton, or it might drop down a significant amount. It's really hard to determine, but I honestly think you should be looking at your original buy-in price, considering how much profit you might have made, and therefore making a decision off that rather than just the current price of the item. Now, the next thing I wanted to focus in on is skins, because skins are much different than the first two items we mentioned, where Antwerp is pretty much everywhere at this point. Cases are probably always going to have some sort of liquidity to them. Skins are very different. There's two types of skins. You've got your investment purpose and your entertainment purpose, but today I want to focus mainly in on the entertainment purpose, because the investment purpose, it could be potentially a bit easier to see where your get out point is, or you could just indefinitely hang on to them and probably be okay, whereas the entertainment purpose fluctuates a significant amount more, and it's probably a lot harder to see where you should cash out. Now, it's very easy looking at a graph of the Neon Rider here to see that it's only going to take a month and a half for your skins to recover, and it's very hard because in the moment you don't know how long it's going to take, But looking at the past couple operations, I think that you should honestly be in a pretty okay situation if you've got an item that, one, does not get hit with a buff or a nerf, just stays the same, kind of like the AK here. The AK is usually a pretty safe bet because it's not like the M4s that are competing with each other. The AK has really nothing to compete with after the Krieg meta has died. And the second thing I want to say is you should probably be going with something that's at least decently popular. Don't try and go with an AK jet set here because it's probably not going to be something that's going to be impacted by an operation here. Super rare and high tier items aren't really affected by an operation, therefore I think you would be kind of wasting your money buying into those expecting it to be impacted by the operation here. The biggest thing with skins is I would not instantly sell them off just because an operation is hit. Rather, I'd wait a couple months, see where they're sitting at that point. Especially with Riptide here, it brings in new players that are going to be buying skins. Just because there's more skins out there doesn't mean that your skin is necessarily going to tank because of it. I would obviously look at it very intensely before I made a decision, but I think generally speaking, skins aren't actually as volatile to an operation just because they're more volatile in general, and they probably could have an easier path to recovery. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is you really need to be making sure you have a plan when you're selling out your CSGO skins here, whether that plan is going to be to just sell out of CSGO entirely, or if you want to buy in for something in the future. You really need to determine that at the point that you're selling out at. Now down in the description, I'm going to throw up my actual spreadsheet that I use for all of my CSGO investing. I definitely recommend at the bare minimum that you're using a spreadsheet to help keep track of the price point that you sold out at, because it's very important when you're looking to buy in. Again, if you're buying in at a higher price point, I would definitely discourage you from picking up that investment and potentially look for something else unless you're really dead set on that investment. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest concerns I have when people talk about CSGO investing, is because they never talk about reinvesting your profits back into something else. That's the biggest way you're going to see the most growth with CSGO investing, is if you're compounding the gains you get from before and putting them into something new that's potentially got a little bit more potential than what you sold out of. And this can really only be done by making an actual plan when you're selling out. If you're looking at specific items when you're selling out, just write them down in a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet, just because you have it there and you've got a current price point that you can always look back on and make sure that the item is trending in the direction you want it to be. Or if you just want the item completely gone and you don't want to look at it anymore, it's very easy to do. The reason I believe a lot of people don't really go too deep into this step is because they view it as some sort of homework I'm giving you. You obviously don't have to do this, but if you do want to maximize the potential profit you can make, I think it's not going to hurt you. The 15 minutes you invest here are going to make your decision much easier down the line when you can look at the price points that you specifically thought about buying in at, and then you could also compare it to the current price point and look at the future of what you believe the item is going to be. But that is really all I have for today, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.